Hi, and welcome to College Planning Untangled, where we simplify the college planning process for our families. I'm Kristin Clark, and I'm here with Bobby Hood to talk about a really interesting subject today, and that is test stress.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, this is another in our series of talking about how hard things are not that hard. And one of the hardest things to deal with the SAT and ACT coming up is just the idea of test stress. The first thing that everyone always says when they contact me is, "Oh, my kid, they're just not a very good test taker. That's just not their strength," right? I've never had anyone call me up and say, "So
They love being timed for stuff."
exactly
right?
Yeah, and on a side note, it's interesting to like the PSAT is going on, and it's about a 3-week period right now when the PSAT is given, but today is the big day that most high schools across the nation are trying to launch the digital PSAT. And College Board went down at 8 a.m. this morning.
Oh no.
And so the PSAT, it's been coming up and down, but I've heard reports now of 25 high schools that have straight just scrapped the PSAT and just couldn't do it, or that started the test an hour and a half late, where half their students could start and half couldn't. It's an absolute disaster. And so imagine the test stress of sitting there, you're supposed to be taking the PSAT, then you can't log in. Then they say, okay, well, let's just sit here for an hour. You're sitting there thinking about this test that's about to start, right? Or they've had students get to the third section of the test and then the app goes down.
And so, Bobby, that's so bad all the way around.
Right. So they're saying, oh, now you're going to have to come back and take the test a week from now. We're going to reschedule it and hopefully it'll work that time. So test stress doesn't always just come from inside yourself, And so we knew that this digital PSAT rollout was going to be weird, but it's not good.
Tell you, anyways, for me personally, anytime I'm timed, and that's on anything, Bobby, mm-hmm. I'm immediately a stress ball, and I don't stress about a lot, but mm-hmm. Even if they time me to, get ready and time my, I don't know, whatever it is, I'm like, oh boy, here we go, and so.
Absolutely. Right. It just simply the act of saying, I'm going to time you while you do this, adds stress and makes you fumble around and try. And it's because you try to move quickly, right? And trying to tie your shoes quickly, not going to work very well, right? You have to do it at the exact same speed you always did it. That's actually a perfect example of this, right? Which is you have to move slowly and methodically in order to do things quickly, right? Because if you aren't thinking about it, you tie your shoes very quickly all the time, right? Yes. But the moment you're trying to do it quickly, you're like, oh, I've got to tie my shoes.
And just so everybody knows, we have a series that I think is going to pair nicely with this. Mm-hmm. If you go out and you look at Bobby taking us all through the SATs mm-hmm. and how to methodically think about the SATs, you'll want to go out and look at those as well. So Bobby, Absolutely. You're back. So yeah.
All right. So there are some simple solutions to making test stress not that hard to deal with, right? And the simplest solution, of course, is to just practice the test ahead of time, enough times that it changes from being scary to being boring, right? And then you realize that if you practice it enough, that timing isn't that much of an issue because you're used to everything. You're not having to figure it all out. And also, one of the things can happen is if you practice laying on your bed in your room at 11 at night, but then now you're having to take the test at 8 in the morning on a Saturday, right? In a, room where you're having to sit in a chair, just the different environment can cause a lot of test stress. So practice the test at least once under similar conditions from the test, right? So take it sitting up in a chair at 9 in the morning on a Saturday, right? And in fact, I have my, an app that you can purchase in the App Store that is called ACT Audio Proctor that will time your test and read the proctoring instructions just like a proctor would. And while the test is going, you can press a button and have it give you distracting background noises like people coughing and pencils and pages flipping and people walking around. So I'm going to put that into the chat there. You can just download that app and use that to take your test. And so practicing with background noise, that can really help, right?
Bobby, I'll tell you, when I was taking my ACT, now back then we
Mhm.
took it once. We
Sure.
didn't get to take
Yeah,
it multiple times, or at least I didn't.
yeah.
But
Right.
I wore my school clothes for
Mhm.
the same reason, because I was like, "Ooh, I want to get in that mindset, right, of being in school." Now
Oh,
I wore a
wow.
uniform, so it's a little bit
Mhm.
different, but still, if you're wearing something that feels like you're at school, I think is different too.
That's really interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but that makes a lot of sense. Is you want to put your brain in the mindset of, okay, I am taking a test, right?
Yep.
And studies show that a great way to reduce test stress is to go for an outdoor walk for half an hour every day for the week before a test. Just literally, if you aren't normally like taking that time to just clear your head, that can be really helpful, right? And then on test day, you might have done all those things and you're very well prepared, but then as you're sitting there waiting for the test to start, you think, oh my gosh, the rest of my life depends on this one test. So it's super important that I do well on this test, right? And if you start thinking like that, right, that this is so important, then that's going to lead to like test day freak out where you forget all the strategies and you start, just like you were talking about, you just get flustered and start doing random things, right? And so it's important to like try to not care about the test, right? What you want to be is bored but focused, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect
Uh,
sense.
and so the thing is, so you realize these tests, they're standardized. And so, like, they have to have questions that are really easy for the students who aren't going to get a very high score. But they have to have questions that are really, really hard to distinguish between who gets a perfect score and who gets an almost perfect score. So you're going to see a question or several questions that you straight up can't answer, right? Everyone is going to see questions that they have no idea what to do to answer, except for those few people who are going to get a perfect score, right? And so you can think about this ahead of time. What are you going to do when you get to that question, right? Because what happens when you get to a question, you're like, I don't know what to do, something like that. You start becoming stressed, and it's like it's science. It's the fight or flight response. It's just the same thing as if you're walking on a trail and suddenly there's a snake, right?
So, right.
It's
So, yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is like, if you get it to one of those things, have a plan. So to me, I go
absolutely
skip. and then,
exactly
and then at
right.
the very end, I go back and I'd be like, okay, if they're like, you have a minute, I'll be like, C, and move on. Right.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. So that's a big part of it is take the test on your own terms, do the questions you want to do in the order you want to do them. And so, yeah, when you see that question, instead of freaking out and cringing and hunching over and getting stressed, and your heart starts racing, your blood starts pumping, and your blood pressure increases, and then there's all your blood is pulled into your torso, and no blood's getting to your brain anymore, and you can't think right. Instead, you can counteract that stress response by looking at that question, and literally, like, what I would say is I laugh at it and I say, well, I guess I'm not going to get that question right. Well, I wasn't looking for a perfect score anyway. I'm going to go do a different question, right?
Yeah.
And literally the act of laughing at the question tells your brain, okay, I don't need to be in fight or flight response. Instead, I am telling my brain, oh, I am performing the actions that show that this is not a threat. So then your brain says, oh, okay, I am safe. It's not a threat, right? And so then your brain starts sending out the other hormone signals that say, okay, yeah, I can relax. I can slow down my breathing. I can lower my blood pressure, right? And so you laugh, or if you just start feeling stressed, you just close your eyes and give yourself permission to stop for a moment, right? I'm going to stop taking this test for a moment and I'm going to go to a happy place. I'm just going to imagine myself sitting on a beach for 5 seconds, right? And then I'm going to choose to open my eyes and start taking the test again, right? And you can take 3 deep breaths, right, while you do that, right? The act of taking 3 deep breaths is absolutely transformative of what it does physiologically to your body. It just changes all of those reactions. It stops those reactions in their tracks.
Yeah. And
Right?
Bobby, I got to tell you, I go out and I speak a lot
Mm-hmm.
about my work, right, and getting kids ready for careers. And there are times, and I've given these speeches over and over, that I get that feeling. And the
Uh-huh.
breathing definitely helps me. And the
Absolutely.
other thing where you stand backstage and you do the Superman pose,
Yeah.
and, and you can do that in a classroom too. Who cares?
Absolutely. Right. And so, I mean, a lot of this is like it's nervous energy, right? Part of the reason you're freaking out is because you've just got all this nervous energy and you feel like, you need to be doing something, you get restless. That happens to a lot of the ADHD students and things like
Yeah.
that, right? And, so another thing that studies show is like literally like tapping your foot inside your shoe releases stress and improves test scores. Chewing gum interestingly increases test scores, although mostly they don't allow you to chew gum, but if they can't see you doing it, maybe that, right? There are lots of little things.
I did hear you, Bobby.
Yeah, exactly, right. Yeah, as long as you don't smack it, you're probably going to be fine, right?
Right.
But that's the idea is have a plan, which is when I get stressed, here's what I'm going to do. It's like know that it's going to happen, right? And that's it. Those are simple things to counteract it. But the main thing is like just prepare by taking practice tests and be prepared when you go in and expect strange things to happen, like delays. And when these things happen, don't let yourself. It's just like when you're driving down the road or whatever, and you can get angry and yell at other cars for cutting you off, or you can just turn on the radio and choose to just sit there and listen to your music while you're stuck there in traffic.
Love it.
And that's it. That's test stress.
Hard things are not that hard when you know how to handle them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right.
Well, all right. We'll see you next time.